There is no doubt that live indoor plants have amazing benefits. They're known to reduce stress levels, sharpen your attention, help people recover from illness faster, boost productivity, and improve quality of indoor air. Potted plants are even being prescribed to patients with depression and anxiety, not to mention the beauty and cozy feel they add to our homes. Now, Philodendron and Pothos plants are two of the most popular houseplants, and for good reason. They are incredibly easy to care for, completely beautiful, and come in hundreds of varieties. Many of these varieties are readily accessible at local stores at very reasonable prices. In this episode of my Houseplant Care 101 series, brought to you by rePotme.com, I'm going to share Philodendron and Pothos that can be found for under $20 and discuss how to help them grow huge indoors. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With rePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. First up, how to shop for Pothos and Philodendron. Now, Pothos and Philodendron can be found at most places where we buy plants. You can purchase them at your big box shops, local nurseries, and even grocery stores. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're choosing a healthy plant. Always examine the tops and underneath the leaves. This way you can confirm there aren't any pests on the plant. If you notice the leaves are yellowing or browning, this could be a sign of root rot, bacteria, or some other issues, so it's always best to start with a healthy plant. I'd avoid any sick-looking plants with yellowing or browning leaves. If you have the opportunity to view the roots in the store, make sure they're white and healthy looking. Brown mushy roots mean the plant has root rot. Big box shops can be a great option when looking for plants on a budget. You guys know I love some big box plant shoppings, but don't underestimate the plants that can be found at your local nurseries. Many of these nurseries have a much wider selection, and they do a great job of keeping the plants healthy and not overwatering them, and they can be incredibly affordable. Now, if possible, really take your time to see all the options in your area. For instance, both of these plants cost $15. They're both the same plant, although one is double the size of the other. Now, if your goal is to grow your plants into the largest plant they can be, I really can't express how much it helps to start as large as possible when purchasing your plant. Philodendron and Pothos are known to be some of the faster growing indoor plants. However, it still takes a long time, especially when growing them indoors. I've learned that purchasing large when possible is absolutely worth it. So here's a helpful to-do list when you bring your plant home. Now, when you bring your plant home from the store, there are a couple of things you'll want to do right away. The first thing being washing the leaves. Even if the plant looks great, there could be eggs on the leaves and stems of the plant, so washing off the leaves makes sure that any eggs, grime, and dust gets washed off the plant. This will also help prevent any pests from spreading to your other plants in your home. It's also recommended to quarantine your plant for at least a week or two if you have other plants in your home. This way, you'll be able to detect a pest issue before it's spread to your other plants. Now, if you didn't have the opportunity to take a look at the roots while you're at the store, make sure to check them when you bring the plant home. This way you can get ahead of any problems that the roots may have and do additional care needed, such as trimming away brown mushy roots or repotting the plant. If the roots look fine, it can be a good idea to hold off on repotting when you bring your plant home, because the plant will have come from ideal conditions at the greenhouse and it'll be adjusting to its new environment in your home. And typically the conditions in our home are not greenhouse worthy, and there will be an adjustment period for the plant. Now, if you do choose to repot right away, no worries. The only reason we would hold off if we can is that the plant will have to recover from the stress of the new environment and the stress of the repotting. So giving the plant a few weeks to adjust is a good idea. So how important is it for Philodendron and Pothos to get the correct lighting that will help with fast growth? Now, part of the reason Philodendron and Pothos are known to be such low maintenance plants is due to the fact that they can survive in lower light areas. However, Just because these plants can survive without a lot of light does not mean that they will thrive. Pothos and philodendron in lower light conditions will not put out as much new growth or large leaves. Now, if you've noticed your plant is not showing signs of new growth, I'd really recommend moving it to a brighter area. These plants actually really enjoy bright and direct light. Now, be careful because if you put them in direct light, there's a chance those leaves will burn. But in order for them to grow quickly and grow large leaves, they do need enough light. And it will also prevent the plant from becoming leggy. So here is how you know when to water your philodendron and pothos. Now, these plants are known to be drought tolerant. This means if the plant goes too long without water, it will not immediately die like some of these other plants. If they don't get water right when they need it, they're a goner. But that's not the case with philodendron and pothos. However, if your plant is dealing with drought all the time, the chances of it growing quickly are very, very unlikely. So a good rule of thumb is to wait until the soil is about halfway dry and give the plant a quick drink. A moisture meter is a great way to test this. These plants are great because they'll also let you know when they are thirsty. If the leaves start to look droopy and withered, it means the plant is ready for a good drink. Typically, thicker-leaved plants will be able to store more water in their leaves, and thinner-leaved plants will need to be watered more regularly. Just be careful not to water when the soil is already moist. Philodendron and pothos can be prone to root rot if the soil is not well draining and the plant is overwatered. So here are some repotting tricks to grow huge plants. Repotting correctly and using certain techniques can be one of the best ways to set your plant up for success to become massive. This includes using the correct soil mixture, customized to the plant's needs, choosing the correct pot, using a plank or a moss pole, and fertilizing correctly. I purchased 3 plants today from Pike's Greenhouse, a local nursery with multiple locations. They have amazing, amazing plants. I do recommend them if you have one in your area. So the first plant I bought is this beautiful philodendron. I could not believe the size of these leaves. I also purchased 2 small pothos from Pike's Nursery. I bought a pearls and jade pothos and a neon pothos. Now, one of the tricks that you can do is find plants for a good deal and then plant them into the same pot to make a large plant. Both of these plants have very similar care needs and would look great in a pot together. I love the mix of colors between the lime green of the neon pothos and the beautiful pearly white and lush green of the pearls and jade. So I decided to repot them together. I also found this beautiful philodendron micans recently at a big box shop. So I would like this micans to grow huge leaves. So I'll be repotting it today and giving it a moss pole. Now there are some clear best options when it comes to pots for philodendron and pothos. I'd recommend going with either a ceramic or a plastic pot for philodendron and pothos. Now, terracotta, which is great for cacti, succulents, and snake plants, can cause the soil to dry out too quickly for philodendron and pothos. However, if you are prone to overwatering your plants and watering too regularly, terracotta would be a perfectly fine choice for you. Just keep in mind that if you choose terracotta, you will need to water your plants more regularly. Now for me, I'm an underwaterer, and ceramic or plastic for me will do a much better job of retaining some moisture in the soil. This is why it's hugely important for your pot to have great drainage, because great drainage will make sure that the water does not sit in the soil and cause root rot. As you all know, I like to use nursery pots and then cover pots. Today, I'll be using these slotted orchid pots from rePotme.com. They enable me to see the roots, the moisture in the soil, provide fantastic drainage, and I don't need to repot every time I want a new pot for my plant. Now, what's the right soil recipe? Pothos and philodendron both enjoy well-draining soil that does retain some moisture. You can either make your own soil really easily using a simple recipe, or you can buy customized soil. I'll be using the pothos soil and philodendron soil from rePotme. Their tropical houseplant soil is also a great option. If you want to make your own soil, As I said, it's just a simple recipe, 50% potting mix, and then you can use 50% of either perlite or pumice or orchid bark or a mixture of the three. You just want to make sure there is a good mix of substrate to help encourage drainage for the plants and make sure that the roots have access to airflow. So what's the deal with climbing philodendron? Does letting them climb help them get huge leaves? And the answer is yes. In their natural habitat, these plants grow up the sides of trees, and the smaller leaves at the bottom of the plant tend to stay small because they have lower light, and then the leaves and the part of the plant that climbs up higher end up being much larger. So giving your plant a moss pole or a plank will greatly encourage your plant to grow large leaves. Now I've decided to give this mykins something to climb, and I decided on a moss pole today. Now if you are using a moss pole, it's a good idea to keep the moss pole moist so that the aerial roots of the plant can attach to the moss pole and use the moisture provided in the moss pole. Planks are a fabulous choice as well. They're a little lower maintenance. There's no worry of pests like there can be with moss poles. And the plant can still attach to the plank and get those benefits of climbing to get larger leaves. Now, high humidity is important to help the plant attach to the plank. I'll be discussing humidity a little bit more. But I decided to use the moss pole here because I just liked the way it looked better. And I also liked the fact that I could add on to this moss pole if needed. So if you are using a moss pole, always wash the moss pole first and then, just give it a chance to get moistened and washed off. Temperature and humidity also play a huge role in helping your plant stay healthy and grow huge. As a rule of thumb, I always say if you're comfortable with the temperature in your home, so is your plant. If you're cold, your plant is cold. Now, these tropical plants do not enjoy very cold weather, and they don't enjoy cold water. So be careful when watering not to let the water be too cold on the roots because it can shock the roots of the plant. Now, if you have low humidity in your home, especially during the winter months, a humidifier is a great investment. Or using a pebble tray with some water and placing your plant on the pebble tray and allowing that water to evaporate can really help provide humidity for your plant as well. Now, I cannot overstate how important nutrition is. No plant will be able to survive without adequate nutrition. Potted plants are limited to the nutrition in their pots, so it's important we feed them when necessary, and it's really easy to do with a plant fertilizer. Now, there are lots of options for fertilizer out there, and it really doesn't matter what type of fertilizer you choose. Just make sure it says for houseplants on there if you're using it for philodendrons. I really like the houseplant fertilizers from rePotme. I've used them a bunch. They have both synthetic and organic options, whichever you prefer. Again, it doesn't matter what brand you use. Just make sure, like I said, it says for houseplants, and you always start by using a weak solution at the beginning of the growing season. So maybe start at half strength, and if your plant does well with that, you can up to full strength during the summer months, and then during the fall, go back down to half strength. And most houseplants do not need to be fertilized during the winter months unless they're showing a lot of new growth. So if you have a plant room in your home and your plant is getting a lot of light and showing new growth, then fertilize at half strength through the winter months. But it is a good idea to let your houseplants rest during the winter months. Now, it is so easy to make more philodendron and pothos. As long as you have one plant, you can make many more from cuttings. So philodendron and pothos are known as some of the easiest types of plants to propagate. It's very simple. All you have to do is cut the plant between the node with clean shears and either place in water or in soil, and you'll have a new plant in a matter of weeks. Also, pothos actually release a growth hormone in water, so put your other cuttings in with pothos cuttings to make them root faster. And if you do put your cutting in soil, just make sure the soil around the cutting does not dry out. The soil will need to remain moist until those roots develop. So those are some Philodendron Pothos under $20 and how to grow them into huge, beautiful plants. Keep in mind these were only a few of the varieties that can be found for a very reasonable price. If you have any additional tips, please leave them in the comments below. And if you'd like to see future plant videos show up in your newsfeed, make sure to subscribe. We also have a terrific plant community on Instagram if you'd like to join. And huge thank you to rePotme.com for partnering with me on my Houseplant Care 101 series. There are many other episodes to explore on plant care. I have included a link in my description below to all of their amazing plant care products. And don't forget to use code Ashley for 10% off any of their soils. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. You will definitely be seeing me soon. Bye.